Okay, so in our today's session, we'll talk about routing in Angular. So in our last session, we have taken a look at services. So today's session, we'll talk about routing. So routing is one of the important concept in any single page application library. So if we take Backbone or if we take React or any other library or any other framework that you use, so routing would be there. So what does the routing basically does is it actually listens to the URL changes. So whenever there is a URL change, it will listen to the change event, and then will based upon the URL, it basically figures out like which component to render on the browser. Okay, let's say if I have a login component, login.html, or just say login, just say URL has a login basically maps to your login component, logout maps to your logout component. Okay, home maps to your home component. So based upon your URL, your component basically gets rendered on your browser. So it's a URL to component mapping. So whenever there is a URL change, your router will listen to the change and then will render the appropriate component. That's what the usage of your router. So having your router will make sure that if you have, we can create multiple URLs, multiple components, and then we can create this component to the URL mapping. So using router, you can programmatically go from one component to the other component. Let's say, for example, you are in a login component. So once a user enters a correct username and password, you want to take the user to a home component. Okay, when you click on your logout link, you want to take the user back to your login component. So you can move from one component to the other component. So we can route from one component to the other component using your router. Okay, so let me show you a very quick example on how to. I created a small routing app. It's a routing demo application. So there is nothing in here that I haven't coded yet. So in order for your routing to work, so I'm going to create some sample components so that we can see how the routing needs to be configured in your Angular 2 application. Okay, so I'm going to create a component in G generate component. I'm going to create a home component for my home page. I don't want another folder. I want inline template and inline styles. I'm going to have my spec to be false, so that way it will not create a test file for me. Okay, I created a home component. I'm going to create another component called page1 component. Okay, and I'm going to create another component called page2 component. I have a home component, page1 component, and page2 component. Very good. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to verify that it created those components for me: home component, page1 component, and page2 component. So I'm not going to code anything in here. If you open the component, you'll see home works, page1 component will say page1 works, page2 component will say page2 works. In the app folder, I'm going to create another file. The name of the file is going to be your app.routing.ts. So this is your main routing file which contains your routing configuration. So first thing is we need to import your router module. I'm going to import router module from Angular/router. From the router module, I'm going to import a class. Okay, so here I'm going to create a constant. The name of the constant is app_routes equal to router module dot. I have a method called for_root and for_child. We'll take a look at for_child later. So the for_root method here takes actually an array of routes. You see here the for_root method, the first parameter is an array of routes. So I'm going to create an array. So that's my array. So this array is going to have the route objects that we want to create. Your route objects basically have two important properties, the path and the component. I'm going to leave the path empty here, and my component, I'm going to define it as a home component. So when no URL is specified, then it basically goes to your home component. I haven't imported the home component yet, so I'm going to import that now. Import home component from dot slash home dot component. Simple. Okay, the next URL I'm going to create, let's copy that, the one that we have here. I'm going to define the path as page 1. So when the URL contains page 1, it will try to load your page 1 component. I'm going to do the other one as well, page 2. Okay, I'm telling my router to render my page 2 component. I'm going to import those two components as well. Import page 1 component from dot slash page 1 dot component. Let's import the second component, which is your page 2 component. Okay, so this is how you configure routes in your application. Okay, you have your required imports for your components and your router module, and then you create a constant by calling your router module.forRoute method, and then you pass your route array. So you have a path, a URL is mapped to a component. So based upon your URL change, your router will listen to that URL change event and then will render the appropriate component. So when the component is rendered, its corresponding template gets rendered on your browser. Okay, once you have created this constant, so we need to import this constant to your module. So let's import that. Import app underscore routes from dot slash app dot routing file. Okay, and then you take this app routes and add it to your import section here, and that's pretty much it to configure your routing. So you import your app routes and then add that to your import section of your module. Okay, the next thing that I'm going to do is, so let's run our application to see if your routes are working. So let's try ngserve. Yeah, there is one other small thing that I missed. Let me go to my app component HTML. So let me remove all these UL and LIs that I really don't want. Let me remove this image as well. And here we need to add an element called router outlet. Okay, so the component basically gets rendered. So wherever you have your router outlet. Okay, so this will get rendered. This div will be there for all your pages, and here this is where the new component gets rendered. So when you select home, your home component gets rendered in the place of your router outlet. Okay, the same way you have your page 1 component will get rendered in the place of your router outlet, and so on. Alrighty, let's see if this actually is working. Okay, let's go to your browser. HTTP localhost 4200. Okay, if you see, I got homeworks. Okay, it said welcome to the app homeworks. If you see, it rendered your home component because your path does not have anything. It's basically your server IP and your port number. Okay, so let's load your other one and say page 1 component. If you see, I got page 1 works. Now if you put in page 2, you're basically gonna get your page 2 component. Okay, page 2 works. Okay, so that's how you map your URLs to your components. Okay, so wherever you have your router outlet, So that is where the component will get rendered on your browser. So that's why you see this welcome to in all the components. Welcome to app, right? You go to page 2, you see welcome to app. If you put page 1, you will also see that welcome to app. Okay, right wherever you have your router outlet. So this is where your component, your router will render the component. Okay, so you create your components and then you map your components to a particular path. Okay, a path is mapped to a component. A path is mapped to a component. Okay, now what we'll do is we'll try to create URLs. So that way, so we would know how to go to these components. So let me create another div here. So inside this div, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a UL. I'm going to have an li. I'm going to have an anchor. That's 3. I need 3 li's with anchor. Bingo. I don't need a href. I'm going to remove that href. I don't need that. I'm going to get rid of that href. So here I'm going to write the first anchor is the home. Page 1, page 2. So when I click on these links, instead of directly going to the URL and putting your page 1 and page 2, when I click on this link, the corresponding component needs to get rendered. So that's what I'm trying to achieve. So the way you do that, you basically use an attribute called router link. So this one is empty because your home does not have anything, but your other ones, router link equal to page 1. Router link equal to page 2. Okay, now in your app page, in your app component HTML, you created 3 links. When you click on this link, you are expecting your router to render the appropriate component. When you click on page 1 link, it should render your page 1 component. When you click on your page 2 link, it should render your page 2 component. Let's try that. Okay, so it created my links. I'm going to click on home. You see I got home works. I'm going to click on page 1. I got page 1 works. If you see, the URL also changed. Click on page 2. I got my page 2 works. So understood how we are able to create your links and then map that links to your components. Okay, so that is pretty neat. Alrighty, now let's take a look at, so let's go to your page 1 component. Let's create a link that will take me to page 2. I'm going to say page 1 works, anchor A, take me to page 2, end of anchor. I'm going to write router link. I want you to take me to page 2 component. Okay, simple. So from my page 1 component, I want to go to my page 2 component. So let's try that. So I'm inside my page 1 component. So here, if you see, when you hover on your take me to page 2, here it will show a URL. Try to observe that URL. It says localhost 4200 /page1/page2. But that URL actually is not there, correct? Because we have localhost 4200 page 2, but we don't have page1/page2. So in order to address that problem, so what we need to do is, so let's put //page2. So now that should show us the correct URL. If you see localhost 4200 /page2. So when I click on that, that will take me to my page 2. Okay, so that's how you do from one component. If you want to go to a different component, that's how you do it. Make sure that you have your / here. That's very important. Okay, now let's go back to the page 2 component and let's add a link to page 1. Let's do that by defining a button type equal to button type equal to button, take me to page 1, end of button. On the click of the link, click of the button, I wanted to navigate to page 1. I'm going to call a method navigate to page 1. Navigate to page 1. So here I need to write the code that will take me to my page 1 component. So in order to do that, so what we need to do is we need to first gain access to the router. So let's import the router. Just say import router from an Angular/router. So we need to have a router dependency. So that's why I'm importing the router from my Angular router package. Here I'm going to say private router :router. Okay, so that way it will create an instance variable for me in this component. So now I'm going to say this dot router dot navigate. So here I need to give a command. Let's see what your navigate method takes. It takes an array, and I want you to take me to page 1. This dot router dot navigate to page 1. So from your page 2 component, so when you click on a button, you want it to go to page 1. So this is how you do it. You define your router as a dependency. So your Angular will inject your router, and using that router you call the navigate method and you pass an array. The array is going to have your page 1. This is where the navigation will go. Let's try that. Okay, now I'm inside my page 2. I wanted to go to page 1. Let's click on page 1. You see I'm inside my page 1 now. I can click on take me to page 2. It will take me to page 2. Click on page 1. I go back to my page 1. So this is how you can programmatically navigate from one component to the other component. You say this dot router dot navigate, and then you pass the URL. So based upon the URL, your router would check your routing file and then see, okay, which component that I need to render. So it will automatically render that. Understood? How you can create your path to your component mapping. Alrighty, that looks pretty good. Now let's move on to the next thing in your router. So you can also do route redirection. So let's say I wanted to create a URL path page 3, but if you see I don't have a page 3 component. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say page 3, I want you to redirect to my page 1. Okay, when you type page 3 in your browser, it will take you to your page 1. So that's what your route redirection. Okay, whenever you can redirect a route to another route. So I have a page 3 route, it gets redirected to my page 1 route. Let's try that. Page 3, page 1, let's put here page 3, click on enter. If you see, it took me to my page 1 route. Okay, understood? How we can do route redirection? Very nice. I think we can also do, so let's say if the route is not found, like I think it's star, I guess. Let's see. Redirect to, let's put in page 1. Let's leave it empty. So if you try to enter anything other than these, I think it should take us back to the home page. Let's try that, if that is working. And to say page 10, we see it took me back to my home page. Okay, it's more like a not found situation. So where you say that, okay, you're trying to enter a route which is not mapped, you want it to take to the home page, home component. So that's why I have redirect to equal to this, so that will redirect the user back to the home component. Okay, easy. Alrighty, it's all about practice. I mean, I'm able to code this without looking at anything, so when you practice it, then you'll be able to do the same as well. Alrighty, the next thing that I wanted to talk about is route parameters. So with routes, you can actually pass route parameters. So let's try that. Okay, let me create a page 4 component. Path page 4. Let's say my page 4 component returns a name. Okay, it basically gets an input name. I haven't created the component yet. I'm going to create one. Page 4 component. Let's copy this guy. Let's add this import. Import page 4 component from page 4 dot component. Alrighty, let's create that component. View integrated terminal. Here it is. Control plus. Ng generate component. The name of the component is page 4. Then I'm going to say flat itis spec equal to false. Okay, now it created my page 4 component. That looks good. So in some cases what happens is when you have, let's say if you have a master detail page, so where you're showing, for example, course list, you're displaying list of courses and you wanted to view the detail of a course. So you basically click on the course and then that will take you to the detail page. Your detail page needs to know what is the course ID so that it can render the details of that course. So that is when your route parameters actually help you. Okay, you basically pass the course ID as a route parameter, I mean in the URL. So where your detail component can read that particular course ID and then can render the information about that course. Okay, so that is where your route parameters actually help you to do it. Okay, now what we'll do is, so your page 4 component actually expects, okay, I'm creating this page 4 component, it expects the route parameter to be passed. So in order for your page 4 component to extract your route parameter, so what we need to do is we need to import an activated route class, activated route from your Angular router package, Angular/router, and then define that here, private AC activated route. Okay, let's see, I'm going to print out whatever the name I'm going to get, name string name. Alrighty, that looks pretty good. So in the constructor, what we'll try to do is we say this dot activated route, this dot name equal to this dot activated route dot parammap dot get, and then we can pass the name. Yeah, I think it's params of, yeah, I think I got it, activated route dot snapshot dot param of param.get name. Alrighty, that looks good. So from the activated route, whatever the route that is activated, okay, from its snapshot, from the map, from the snapshot parameter map, get me the value for the name. So where we are getting this name from, the name is an exact label that I have defined in my routing file. So here, page 4, name. So if you have here, instead of name, if you replace it with something else, you need to come back to your page 4 component and you need to also change this. Very important. Okay. Alrighty, that looks good. So let's go to our page 2 component and then let's invoke our page 4 component. So inside your page 2, let's do it with an anchor. Anchor, go to page 4 with route params. End of anchor. So here inside your anchor, I'm going to say router link equal to, I hope this is correct, let's try that. I wanted to go to page 4 comma, and I wanted to pass, let's say USA. So let's say the parameter name is, parameter value is USA. Page 4, parameter value is USA. So when you wanted to pass your parameters with your route, with your router, so you need to make sure that you have to, like, put your property binding notation for your router link. That's very important. You have your square brackets here, right? But if you see in my earlier, wherever I'm not using route parameters, I don't have these square brackets. Now here we need to add it. Okay, and the first parameter of your array is going to be the route. When you click on this link, it will take the user to this page 4 URL with the route parameter value USA. Okay, so let's try that. Let's see if there are any errors. So let's go to page 1. Is it page 2? Page 2, right? Page 2, go to page 4 with route params. Here if you see on the bottom, the URL says localhost 4200 / page 4 / USA. If you see the way it constructed the URL, the value whatever that USA is there, it appended to that URL. So it goes as name. You click on that. If you see it says page 4 works, the value is USA. Okay, and then you go back, and if you wanted to change it to something else, you can actually see that value there as well. Okay, the important thing that you have to observe here is the URL that you have here, page 4 / USA. So you can pass some values in the URL as route parameters, and you can access them the way I have programmatically accessed them here using your router, using your activated route. Go to your page 4 component. You have your activated route .snapshot.parammap.get of name. Okay, if you have a master detail page, so this is how you do it. Your master page is going to be your course list component, and your detail page is your course detail component. Okay, understood how we are able to access your route parameters. You can have more than one route parameter as well. So here inside your app routing file, you can have /name / something else. Okay, you can have more than one route parameter value here. Okay, so this will make more sense when you try to do that application, that we talked about, right? So that's where you'll have to use your route parameters. Okay, because in your course list component, when you click on a link, you should be taken to your course detail component. So that's when you need to pass your course ID as a route parameter to your course detail component, where it can extract it from your activated route. Alrighty, that looks pretty good. That's your route parameters. I think there is one other small thing that I wanted to mention. Okay, let's create another application. So to dive in a little bit more about routes. Okay, the next topic that we'll be taking a look at is how to define module-wide routing. Okay, we can also define module-wide routing. So if we have course module, user module, we can have a corresponding course.routing file. We can have a corresponding author dot or user dot routing file. Okay, so let's create that application. ng new. I'm going to create an application called course app. So your app that you will be developing, it looks very similar to the one that I'm doing right now. So far clear on the routing. So how we are able to create your app routing file and is able to map your path to your component. Okay, so based upon your URL changes, your component will get rendered. Come on, it's taking a little more time. Holy shit, it's taking quite a long time. The selector for a component? No. To render the contents on your, correct, we don't need that. When you use your router outlet, so based upon your URL change, so wherever you have your router outlet, so that is where your component will get rendered. So here when we have this star where we said, like, if the route is not found, redirect to the home component. If you want, you can create another component like not found component or something, and you can say the route does not exist, or the URL you're trying to access is not there, or something. You can actually do that as well instead of redirecting to the home component. Alrighty, it successfully created my course app. So let's go in there. Alrighty, let's generate a module. ngGM generate module. Name of the module is course module, and then I want it to also create a routing file for it. So we just say dash dash routing. I think that should create your module. Let's see that. So if you see, it created course dash routing dot module dot ts, and you have course dot module dot ts. Alrighty, let's go ahead and take a look at that. Let's open that project file, open folder, course app. Okay, see, it created my course folder where I have my course module and I have my course routing file. Oh, this is even interesting. I didn't know that we can do something like this. Router module dot for child. Alright, we'll come back to this later. This is a new way, I guess. So we have course module. We're starting with your course module. So let me remove this guy. It's like any other module. So now here I'm going to create few components. First component I'm going to create is list component. List dot component dot ts. Okay. The next component I'm going to create it is course dot ts. Okay. That's going to be my interface. Course is going to have two properties: the name of the course and the ID of the course. Two properties. So let's go with simple way. So you have your list component, you have your course component. Alrighty, let's do it the other way. cd source app cd codes ng generate component. I'm going to create a page component dash dash it dash dash is dash dash flat spec equal to false. So this is my main page component, or you can even call this as main component if you want. And then I'm going to create a list component. I'm going to create a detail component. A detail component. Alrighty, that actually looks very good. List component, you have your detail component, then you have your page component. This is your main component of your course module. And then you have your course.ts, which contains your data. Okay, let's create your routing file. Course.routing.ts. Let's copy. We don't have that. Okay. So the same thing that we did earlier. So we import our router module. Router module from at angular/router. So that is good. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to say export constant quotes routes. So instead of using router module.forRoute, I'm going to use a router module.fetchChild. You can have only one root router, and the rest of the other ones are your childs. So your app.routing, which I haven't created yet, so that's going to contain your router module.forRoute. But rest of your all other module wide routing, so they will be the children of that particular parent. Okay, so here I'm going to define my routes path. If I don't specify anything, I want it to render my course page component. Let's do that. Import page from /page component .ts. This should be page component. Sorry, I got that wrong. That's my page component. I'm going to specify. So rest of all the components is going to be the children of this component. I'm going to say path component is page component. I'm going to say children. It's an array. It's an array of routes. Say path. First one is the list component. Component colon. Let's import our list component and your detail component. Your list component and your detail component. Detail component. So this is going to be your list node component and your detailer. So when you are doing it, this is how you do it in your application as well, and in your real life. Component is going to be your list component, and the next one is going to be your detail. Your detail component actually receives your course ID as an input. I'm going to say course ID component is going to be your detail component. Simple. Alrighty, not that bad. Now here I'm going to create an app routing file as well. app.routing.ts. Let's copy whatever we have in your course routing file. So there is a comma here. I'm going to remove that. Copy that to your app routing. I'm going to remove all of these guys. This is going to be your app routes. Router.for route. So here the route, it's going to look a little different. Let's see that. For path is going to be your courses. So instead of your component, what we're gonna have is we are going to have another property called load children. It's going to point to your course module app slash course dot module hash course module. I hope that is correct. Let's see if that is wrong. Okay, so your app route is going to have your module wide routes. If you see, it's going to path courses is pointing to your course module. The same way you create, if you have authors, you're going to have load children app author slash author module hash author module, the name of the module. Okay, so that looks good. Now we're going to take this app routes, and then I'm going to define inside my app module. You go to app module, and then I'm going to say import app underscore routes from dot slash app dot routing file. App routes app dot routing file. Add that to your import section. That looks good. The next thing that I'm going to do is, if you see, we define our course routes, but we haven't imported it anywhere. So let's import that as well. Let's go to your course routes, go to your course module. Let's add that import as well. Import course routes from dot slash course dot routing file. And then you're gonna take these course routes and add it to the import section. Okay, so we have your app route has your router.for route, and then you have your course routes is going to have router.for-child. Okay, so the way this works is, when the URL has your courses, it will try to fetch the components from your course module. It will go to your course module, and then we'll figure out, okay, what are the routes for my course module. Okay, then it figures out, okay, this constant has a routes defined. It will go to your course routings file, and then we'll figure out which component to render. Okay, if you don't have anything, it will render your page component. Okay, if you don't have anything, when I say anything, if you have just courses, it will render your page component. If you have courses slash list, it will render your list component. If you have courses slash list, courses slash detail with a course ID, it will render your detail component. Okay, so when you see the demo, you'll understand that a little better. Okay, now let's go to your course list component, and then we'll populate our courses. There are a couple of different ways that you can get your courses. You can define a service and get the courses from there, or you can basically, like, hard code your services here. So let's define a service. New file, course.service.ts, export class course service. You can also use your Angular CLI to create your code service. You say ng generate service code service. So here I'm going to have a private variable courses. It's an array of courses. Array of courses equal to, I'm going to just say name of the course. Let's say it's Java programming. Okay, the ID of the course is JP. Okay, and I'm going to copy this. I'm going to say Python programming. I'm going to say just put the course as PP. Okay, I inserted 2 courses into my array. So this is a private array. So we need to expose this. So I'm going to say public get courses, return this dot courses. Okay, this is your service which is exposing your courses outside. So if anybody want to use it, so they need to call your get courses method. So we'll just add this course service under your providers inside your course module, so all the components will just have one single copy. Providers course service. So let's import our course service. Import course service from /course.service. Clear so far? So we created a list component. Your list component is now going to depend upon your course service to get your courses. Import course service from /course.service. Private course service : course service. So what is this gonna do? This gonna basically get your courses. It's an array of courses. I'm going to just import the course as well. Import course from /course. I do that in my service? No, I didn't. Let's import the course as well. Import course from /course. Nice. My list component still not getting the courses, so we'll do that here. This dot courses, and the component is initialized, it's going to get the courses. This dot course service dot get courses. Simple. Okay. So now what this here does is, let's remove this guy from here. So let's create a UL and then li. So what your li is gonna do, it's gonna basically do an ng for on your courses. Let course of courses, it's gonna display the course name, course.name. Okay, we have your, okay, let's try up to here and see if it is working or not. The for let course of courses, course.name. Your list component looks good. Now let's take a look at your course page component. This is your course page component. Let's add h1 courses. That looks good. And here we're gonna put a router outlet. So this is where your components will render. Your list component, your detail component, all the components will get rendered inside this router outlet. Okay, this is your child outlet. We still have to add your parent outlet. Let's go to your app component HTML and then add. Let's remove all of that stuff that is here. And let's add a router outlet here. A router dash outlet end of router. Okay, this is your main router outlet, and the second one is your child router outlet, which is your module wide router outlet for your course module. We still haven't coded our detail module yet. We'll do that in a little while. Let's see if this is actually working. Let's create a link to go there. App component HTML. Let's add a div. End of div. Let's add an anchor. Anchor A. Courses. End of anchor. Here I'm going to have a router link. This is going to have, is it course or courses? In my routing file app routing.ts, it's courses. Okay, that looks good. I think I don't need this binding because I'm not passing anything. Let's try that without it and then we'll see what will happen. Anchor a router link equal to courses. When you click on these courses, then it will go to your app routing file and then it will figure out, okay, I need to load the children. It will go to your load children on your course module. It will go to your course module. Okay, figure out that, okay, I have my course routes that I need to take a look at. It will go to your course routes. So that courses is your main route. It will try to load your page component. But your page component, it also expects one of these child component to be there because it does not have its own state. Okay, so we need to be a little more innovative there. So let's go to your app component HTML and then let's add your router link. Let's try router link equal to courses slash list. Let's add slash courses slash list. Let's see what happens. Alrighty, it's action time. Let's see what will happen. Okay, no errors, no compilation errors, at least that looks good. So let's load our app 4200. Okay, no errors as well. So let's take a look at our link. It's 4200 slash courses slash list. So let's click on that. There you go. When I click on that courses, if you see the URL change, slash courses slash list, so it rendered my two courses that I have, Java programming and Python programming that I have. So understood your flow, the way it happened. So when you, in your app module, let's go from the beginning, right? So we have configured your app routing. Your app routing.ts basically contain your for route. So this is your module wide routing. So all the routing configuration of your course is defined at your course level itself. Okay, your app routing just have to know that, okay, where the routing has been defined. You define your path as courses and its children is going to be defined inside your course module. The path of it, it's an app. Go to the app folder, go to the course folder. Inside this file course.module, you'll find a class called course module. It will go to your course module, have your app folder, course. It will go to your course.module.ts and then it will figure out, okay, do I have an import for my routes? It will figure out, okay, I have my routes. It will go to your course routes and then we'll figure out, okay, this is the routing configuration that I have. My slash courses is mapped to my page component. Okay, does it have a child component called list? It will figure out, okay, I do have a child component called list. It will render your list component. Okay, so understood your children here. Your page component has your children. So the way your list where is your list component is rendering? Your list component is rendering to in the router outlet of your page component. You have your page.component.ts. So this is where your list component is being rendered inside the router outlet. Okay. Alrighty, let's stop this. Let's code our detail component as well with your route parameters, right? So we didn't code that yet. Course routing, path, detail, course ID. Let's go to your list component. Let's add this is basically it's just displaying the name. Let's convert that to an anchor. I'm going to say anchor, anchor, end of anchor. In this anchor, I'm going to say router link equal to, I want you to take me to my detail page slash courses slash detail page, and I want the second parameter or the route parameter that I want is my course ID, course.id. Okay, router link slash courses slash detail component comma course.id. Course.id will appear in your URL. After your detail, whatever the course ID you have, your JP and PP, they will appear here when you click on this link. Okay, and inside my course detail component, what I'm going to do is we need to access those parameters, right? The way we do that, we basically import your activated route, the same thing that we did earlier, from at Angular slash router, and then inside your constructor you say private activated route. Alrighty, that looks good. So let's display the course ID string. Okay, how we set this? We basically say this dot course ID equal to this dot activated route dot snapshot dot param map of param map dot get of course ID. Done. Okay, this course ID here, this is exactly the you have to use the exact route parameter name that you have used inside your course routing file. Okay, it has to be the exact parameter name, otherwise you'll not be able to get the value. Okay, so let's display. So detail works for course ID. Let's display the course ID. Done. Okay, this looks good. Let's run it. Let's do ngserve. So defining module-wide routing is very important, because if you define everything at the app level or the app in the app routing file, so when your application is initialized, your Angular will try to load all the components, everything. Okay, so if you have your module-wide routing and module level components, your Angular does lazy loading. So until you click on your courses, it's not going to render try to get your course components, your list component, your detail component, your page component. It will not try to render get those from your server. Okay, so I think I can demo that as well. Let's see. Let's go to your 4200. Okay, let's go to the network tab. So everything is served as a JavaScript file, right? The main bundle, your main bundle. This is your main bundle. So your main bundle is not going to have anything related to your course module, like course component or any of those components will not be there inside your main bundle. Okay, let's clear this out. Let's click on your courses. If you see it fired another request to get your chunk. This chunk is going to have your details about your course module, the components that you have, the course, the list component, your everything else, everything related to your course service. All of these are loaded when you click on that link. Okay, this is called lazy loading. So if you have multiple links here, like one for courses, one for others, one for something else, until you click on it, it's not going to get those components. Okay, so this will improve the performance of your application to a great extent. So that's why you need to define your module-wide routing in your Angular applications. Okay, now you have you see this tool. Now these are appearing as links right now. So when you hover on it, you can see the URL there, localhost 4200 / courses / detail / jp for the first one. The second one, it says the same URL with pp at the end. When you click on it, it will take your detail component, courses / detail / jp. Detail works for course ID jp. You go back, you click on your Python programming, it says detail works for your course ID pp. Okay, if you wanted to show more details, like if your course basically have students or any count or anything, you can display inside your detail page. This is your courses is your master page, and this is your detail page. So that's why it's called as a master detail page. Okay, understood? Now let's do a little bit more fun. Instead of having the detail as a separate page, let's display the detail component right below your course component itself. Let's see how to do it. So in your course routing.js, so what we are going to do is, you have your list component here, right? So let's copy that one more time. I'm going to define the detail component as a child for my list component. I'm going to say children colon an array, and I'm going to copy this guy. Since your list component need to render your detail component, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my list component. Here, right below the UL, I'm going to have a router outlet. Router outlet, router outlet. Okay, so your detail component will get rendered inside this router outlet. Okay, but we need to do a little bit more change. So here, instead of your courses / detail, this has to be list / detail, because your detail component is now a child of your list component. So that's why inside your course routing.ts, we moved this detail component as a child to your list component. Okay, now let's try that to see the way it works. Right, everything looks good, so no errors. Let's click on your Java programming. If you see, the detail works for course ID JP. If you see, it's not taking me to a different page. It's actually within the same page. But if you see, the URL is actually changed. List / detail / pp. List / detail / jp. But there is one small problem here. I don't know if you have observed it. My URL is changing. My course ID is not changing. My content is not changing. Okay, in order to fix that problem, so we need to do a little bit small change. Because if you see, once a component is initialized, you are setting this inside your constructor. So this is not the right place to do it. But if you wanted to do it in the constructor, so there is a small thing that we need to do. We need to subscribe to the route changes. So let's do that. So for that, what we need to do is we need to say import subscription from RxJS. We'll talk about what RxJS is later when we are talking about HTTP. I'm going to create a course ID subscription. This is of type subscription. And here I'm going to say this dot course ID subscription equal to this dot activated route dot snapshot dot I forgot. Let's see how to subscribe to the route. Params dot subscribe. That's what we do. Activated route dot params dot subscribe. You're going to get the params as an input. I'm going to say this dot course ID equal to params of course ID. And then here we need to do a little bit more. I'm going to implement one more interface on destroy, because this is a subscription. Once we subscribe to it, we need to also unsubscribe to it. So the unsubscription happens in your destroy method. Ng on destroy. You're going to say this dot course ID subscription dot unsubscribe. So what this is actually doing is it basically subscribing to the course ID value change in the URL. Once a value change happens, it will automatically set your course ID with the value that is there in the URL. Okay, and once the component is destroyed, we are unsubscribing to it. We are no longer subscribed to that course ID. So let's do save all. Now let's try that one more time. Okay, I hope it refreshed. So let's click on Python programming. If you see it changed, PP. Click on Java programming, JP. So defining your module-wide routing is very, very important. Understanding that, because in your real world, this is how it's going to be. Because we don't want to load all the components at the same time. Okay, that will slow down the performance of your application. So that's why you define your module-wide routing in its own routing file. And the changes that you need to observe is we have for child here, and in your app routing file you have for root. So let's say you wanted to have another module like module like an other module. You'll have the same structure as this one. Course routing, you have your other routing, other module, other service, other.ts, other detail, other list, other page component. Okay, so that is pretty cool. Let me see what else. There are a few other things that I wanted to cover. We covered the redirection. So we use a navigate method to navigate to a different page. When you click on a button, this is actually called imperative navigation. The navigation you perform within your code. Talked about navigation with links. So let's add Bootstrap to our application to see how it actually looks. I hope that it will get installed quickly. npm install Bootstrap. So we talked about Bootstrap a little bit. So Bootstrap is a CSS library that we can use to style our pages. Okay, and it also supports responsive web design. So responsive web design is a way to customize your pages for multiple devices, like how it looks in your mobile, how it looks in your tablet, and so on. It provides a column layout, and it also provides various other components that we can use. If you have a link that you wanted to display it as a button, you can do that easily with your Bootstrap. Alright, it added it. So let's import that to your styles.css. I'm going to have at import. What did I do? At import. Find the bootstrap folder, bootstrap folder. Inside that you find the dist folder. Inside that you have a CSS folder, and load bootstrap.css. Okay, that looks good. So what we can do is inside your, let's create another component at your app level. Ng generate component. The component is going to be navbar component, navigation bar, and then we are going to have, I don't want you to create a folder for me, inline template, inline style. I don't want a test file. Let's create that spec. Okay, it created a navbar component for me. Where is this? Oh, it put it in my course place. I don't want it there. Let's 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 delete that guy. Let's go to your course module. Let's remove this navbar component. Let's see where we are. Yeah, we are inside the course. That's why it created it there. Okay, now created it under app module. So let's go ahead to your app module. Have your navbar component. Your navbar component, let's remove this template. Don't like it there. Let's go to getbootstrap.com and copy the navigation code. Getbootstrap.com. Go to your getting started. Write down. Here let's go to examples. Components. Let's go to components. Finally it loaded. So let's take a look at the navbar component Bootstrap offers. It will be somewhere here. Here it is. Navbar, navigation bar component. So this is how a navigation bar looks in your web page, right? So we can create a navbar component. Let's copy the source code from here. This is your Bootstrap documentation. Copy from here to here and put it inside your I don't want an inline template for it because this template is a little large. Let's create a template URL. Navbar.html. Inside your app folder, let's create a new file. Navbar.html. Let's put that here. In my navigation bar, I'm going to customize this. I don't need all of this stuff. Let's get rid of this. I have a div, I have a closing div, I have one additional div, I guess. Here I'm going to add let's delete your form. Let's delete this UL. Let's remove all of these LIs. I'm going to just put the link name is going to be courses, and then let's go to your app component HTML. Let's copy this anchor. Let's copy the router link. That's good enough. Navbar.html. Remove this href and put router link. Courses. I don't know what this current is. Let's remove that. We don't need that as well. Anchor and an LI and a UL. Okay, this looks good. Let's define this navbar component in your app component HTML. Let's go to navbar component.ts. Copy this selector app-navbar and then go to your app component HTML. Let's remove this div. input app navbar. Okay, let's test that to see if that is actually working. Now your styles bundle should have Bootstrap CSS, and then it should display the navigation bar. So you just install the Bootstrap CSS, and then we just go ahead and then copy the component code that you have in your Bootstrap, getbootstrap.com. Alrighty, there is an error. Cannot find name navbar component. Oh, I got something wrong. Oh, I didn't register. Did I register? Oh, it complained it in the course module. Let's take a look at you. Oh, here. Got it. That was a good catch. Okay, compiled successfully. Let's go there. Let's try our app. Okay, it doesn't display anything yet. Okay, let's click on courses. We see we have a navigation bar on the top. We see it looks a little better, right? So likewise, you can add your others as well, the same way I did this. So what I did, I created a navbar component, and then I copied the HTML inside my navbar HTML, and I moved that anchor which renders your courses, the router link courses, and then I added it here. The same way, if you wanted to have one more, you can basically copy this li, and obviously you should not have router link here. I'm going to remove that. An anchor, it's going to be authors, href equal to hash for now. Okay, now I have courses and others, but there is a very small problem. If you see, both are highlighted, so we can actually fix that. So we wanted to highlight only if that router link is active. So here, if you see the class active, this has to come dynamically. Let's remove this. So there is a way to do that. Let's see that. There should be a router link active or something. Let's search for it. Router link active. There you go. Router link active equal to active. So when that link is active, it's going to add that class. Active. Router link active equal to active. Okay, if the link is active, I mean if the router, as per the router, if this particular link is active, it's going to highlight it. Otherwise, it's not going to. Let's say save all. Let's try that. If you see, courses is highlighted right now, not your others, because others is not selected as per, it's not the current route as per your router. Okay, that's how you do it. You basically do router link, add your router link active property attribute, and then this is your CSS style. Your active is your Bootstrap style, which gives you that background, gray background. Okay, so this is pretty good. So you will have to do the same thing as for your app. You have to create your navigation bar, navbar component. You need to add the same thing like courses, others. When you click on your courses, it should display your list of courses. For displaying courses, I would probably not use just a UL and LI. Probably I will go to getbootstrap.com and figure out, okay, if I can use any component. I think there should be some panel components that we can use, I guess. Panels. Or a list group component, whichever the one that you want to use. Okay, you can probably display a component like this, which displays your, like, the name of the course and some information about the course. I mean, not in detail, but at least some information. When you click on it, on the course title, or maybe somewhere on this panel, it will take you to your course detail component. Or even you can use your list group component as well if you want. This is your list group component where you can display maybe an image for your course and the name of the course. Okay, and then you can basically, if you want to display the number of students enrolled, the rating for your course, okay, if it has a 4 rating or a 3 rating or something like that. Okay, when you click on it, it basically take you to your detail page, which will display all the topics of your course, a little bit more information about your course. Okay, and the same way for your authors. We still haven't added your add course page yet to this application that we have just developed. Okay, there will be an option here also. We'll add a button called add course that will take us to your add course page where we can input some information about the newly created course, the course that we want to create. Okay, when we click on your save course, it will redirect us back to your courses page where we can see that new course added to your list. Okay, we'll do that after we talk about our forms module. Okay, so there are few small things that are left in our router. We'll take a look at that tomorrow, and then we'll move on to forms. Forms, nice. Righty, I think that's pretty much it for today.